Ready? Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 4th, 2022 Sandag LAFCO meeting. I'd like to call our meeting to order. Duke, could you please call the roll? Or Tammy? Who's calling the roll this morning? Tammy. Tammy, okay. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Salas is absent. Commissioner Desmond?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Cates?
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Here.
Commissioner Willis?
Here.
Commissioner Vanderland?
Present.
Commissioner McNamara is absent. Alternate Commissioner Becker?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Vargas is absent. Alternate Commissioner Von Wilbert is absent. Alternate Commissioner Drake?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Mathis?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Becker will vote in place of Commissioner Salas, who is absent. There is a quorum.
All right, thank you very much, Tammy. Appreciate it. Chairman, Commissioner Willis, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, good morning. We're going to start off with the first agenda item here, well, the agenda review. King, do you have any changes or any updates to the agenda today?
Thank you, Chair Desmond, and good morning, Commissioners. No changes to the agenda, at least relative to the amended version that all of you presumably received early Friday morning, an amended version that had one extra item added to the business calendar, 7C, which I'll address when the time comes. But other than that, we are good to go, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do any commissioners have any updates or any changes that they wish to make to the agenda today? Hearing none. Do we have any commissioners that need to explain or I guess to tell us about any ex parte communications for any of today's agenda items? Now would be the time to disclose that. Did anybody have any meetings with any of the folks that are part of the items today?
Actually, for the one public hearing item, we can call for that disclosure at that time. That's the only item which a disclosure will need to be made, and that is for item 6A. So
Okay.
we can call for that at that time.
So we no longer have to do that at the beginning of the meeting. We just do it for those the public hearing items themselves.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, we'll get back to that later then. Okay. Move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments on any non-agendized items today?
None received, Chair.
No?
And none of the remotes.
None? Okay. All right. Okay. The consent items, item 5A through 5F. We've got any items that any commissioners would like to pull or take as a separate vote on the consent calendar, consent items.
I'm going to
Pull
approve consent items A through F.
All right, A through F. I actually want to pull item E and vote on that separately. This is on the teleconference meetings action. This is on the teleconference meetings action.
That is cool.
Okay, now that that's clear. Okay, so the consent items tend to be items A through A, B, C, D, and F for the first vote on consent. So we got a motion. I have a second from motion from Mr. Vanderland, and then a second from Mr. Cate. Could I please have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Desmond?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Vanderland?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kate,
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara is.
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
alternate Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
So that's 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Commissioner Salas, also yes.
Oh,
There she is.
sorry, I did not know you were present.
So that motion was approved, and just quickly, so we are now back to our full commission roster. So Commissioners McNamara and Salas will be the voting city members, and Commissioner Becker is back on the bench.
All right, thank you. Okay, for 5E, is there a motion on 5E? Let's see, we have a motion by Commissioner Kate. Is there a second? No one?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, second by Mr. Commissioner Anderson. Please vote. I'm sorry, we have a roll call again, please. I know, yeah.
Commissioner Salas,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yeah.
Commissioner McNamara,
Yes.
Commissioner Kate,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderland,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond.
No.
So you have 7 in favor, 1 opposed, with 0 absent. The motion passes.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move now on to the public hearings. We have our first public hearing. This is item 6A, so I guess now is the time to ask if there's any ex parte communications that need to be reported from anybody online or any of our commissioners here. Still sounds like none. All right. So with that, we'll open it up, and then Keen, do you have anything to kick off this item or presentation?
We do have, thank you, Chair, we do have a staff presentation. I'm going to defer to Priscilla Allen, and then I know we do have some public speakers as well. Priscilla.
Yes, thank you. I do have a PowerPoint presentation that we'll put up on the screen for you, but this public hearing has been noticed for the Commission to consider a formal request by Fallbrook Public Utility District to expand the scope of their activated service powers throughout their entire jurisdictional boundary. And then if you can put up a Google map here, their jurisdictional boundary does span 44 square miles. We're going to skip the Google Earth presentation, but their jurisdictional boundary does span 44 square miles and is anchored by their unincorporated community of Fallbrook, as well as adjacent communities of Deluse Heights, and Winter Haven, with an overall population of 37,000. The Commission will recall from our recently completed municipal service review on the Fallbrook region. The Fallbrook Public Utility District is currently authorized by LAFCO to provide 3 separate active service functions. Next slide, please. And those are water, wastewater, and recycled water. Today, Fallbrook Public Utility District is seeking Commission approval to expand the scope of their activated service functions and double it with the following 3 proposed service functions, and those being 1, parks and recreation, 2, street lighting, and 3, roads and streets. And this is all for the collective purpose of organizing and funding beautification projects within the affected territory in coordination with local nonprofit organizations, many of which are here today. These beautification projects are also scaled within Fallbrook PUD's proposal to serve as supplements, and important to note, not competing or replacement functions of what is currently being exercised by County Service Number 81, which is Fallbrook Local Parks, and the County of San Diego. At the conclusion of my presentation, I'll defer over to General Manager of Fallbrook Public Utility District, Jack Beebe, who should offer up further details and examples of the beautification projects. Nonetheless, and jumping ahead to our recommendation, staff believes the timing of the proposal does make sense. Next slide, please. And this includes attesting that our analysis, which draws from the recently completed municipal service review, concludes that all factors required for consideration under statute as well as local policy substantively check out. And this is with the explicit aid of adding a couple special conditions into the draft resolution before the commission today. And those conditions are number 5 and condition number 6B within the draft resolution. First, and consistent with our role as boundary referee, we do recommend that County Service Area number 81, as well as county parks, remain principal agencies responsible for providing the associated service functions, and again, those being parks and recreation, street lighting, roads and streets within the affected territory. And what this would mean is that should there be any future conflicts, the commission is clear in the record on who has final say on any associated public projects. Second, we also recommend terming approval on Fallbrook Public Utility District taking the necessary steps involved with freeing up $560K in annual property tax revenues, which are to cover the expected costs of the beautification projects that currently subsidize the water system, and do so via Prop 218 rate setting process. And so with these broad strokes noted, I do want to conclude my presentation. But first I do want to note that we did receive an email on Friday evening by Wallace Tucker in support of this proposal. And also note that we do have public speakers including Dave Knopp, Jake Andrikis from CSA 81, as well as County Parks, Jack Beebe with Fallbrook Public Utility District, and then several members of local nonprofits. And with that, I'll defer to the applicant to provide a few details. Thank you, Commission.
Thank you, Priscilla.
There we go.
Jack Beebe, General Manager, Fallbrook Public Utility District. Yes, I'm here in front of LAFCO again on a separate item.
Welcome.
I'm going to sort of blame your executive officer and the troublemakers in the front row for why we are here. So this started some time ago, several years ago. Community has been very interested in helping them maintain facilities that are there. It's really a volunteer-run community, which gets harder and harder. So for those of you that haven't been to Fallbrook, being an unincorporated city has some challenges. You have to round up volunteers to do things like maintain medians, which isn't a great exercise for a lot of people on a Saturday. So that group came to us, said, can you help us? I was prepared to tell them, no, there's really no way to do it. Keene was there and said, well, actually there is a way for you to do this because you collect existing property tax. That idea went to our board, which supported it. The community groups actually raised funds for the application, so much of the applications fees for this came from the community groups. We can do this. Our goal in setting this up is really to leverage those groups to prioritize what projects to do. My role will mostly be just to make sure it's done properly per our requirements. So being a public utility district, those projects have to get done using public funds. That's really going to be my role, with really the hope that largely the projects are identified each year by the community group. The type and scale will largely depend on what those groups come up with. But again, these are supplemental to the county. I have no interest in taking, our district has no interest in taking over priority on county roads or county lighting or at county parks. But this is really something that will be able to help supplement things the community wants that are above really the level of service that the county can provide based on the funding they have. So, the district does support this item as laid out by LAFCO, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Jack. Appreciate it. We're gonna open up the public hearing and then hear from our speakers. First one, Dave Knapp, the County Department of Public Works.
Park and Rec.
Park and Rec, okay.
Starts with a P.
Is that an R? All right. Thanks, Dave.
Am I hitting the button?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, good morning to all commissioners and officers. My name is Dave Knopp, and I am the Chief of North Operations for the County of San Diego Department of Parks and Recreation, and represent Brian Albright, the Director, who was unable to attend today. The Department of Parks and Recreation supports LAFCO's approval of the Fallbrook Parks Utility District's exercise of latent park and recreation powers under two conditions we understand exist in the report. One, that all Community Service Area 81 special tax assessment and program revenues continue to come to the county to support county park and recreation services at CSA 81 facilities. And two, the county is not in any way precluded from expanding our park and recreation services in the CSA 81 service area. As we understand it, FPUD is in agreement with our stipulation request and seeks to use their latent powers to generate additional revenue that would supplement existing county park services in this service area. Thank you.
All right, David, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker, Michael Griffiths, followed by Karen Utley, and then Jerry Patchett.
Am I still on? Yep. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Griffiths. I'm a resident in Fallbrook. I'm here on behalf of the nonprofit Fallbrook Village Association. And we have a 25-year history of helping to promote and support the economic, physical, and cultural revitalization of the Fallbrook area. San Diego's County Board of Supervisors recommended the creation of the Fallbrook Village Association to develop a vital business and residential downtown to enhance the historic small-town Fallbrook atmosphere, halt deterioration, increase cultural involvement, and promote the friendly village identity. The Fallbrook Village Association owns and/or operates the prime public spaces in historic downtown that benefit residents and visitors to Fallbrook and enhance the beauty and small-town atmosphere of our village. These venues include Vince Ross Village Square, a downtown meeting space where residents and visitors gather to pay tribute to our military memorial wall, have a picnic, or attend events or meetings. Jackie Heineman Park, a favorite of the 3 elementary schools and local apartment families that live close by. The Pico Promenade, a 5-block walking path that connects the residents to our downtown and library. And the Railroad Heritage Park, a new, in-process public area which will celebrate our rich railroad history. The 2 parks in the Village Square are owned free and clear and fully managed and funded by our association, along with help from individual volunteers, fundraisers, private donations, and public grants. We are a 9-person volunteer board of directors constantly striving to raise funds to support these public gems. The Community Benefit Program funds would ensure the future longevity of these public spaces and the many other important projects and community enhancements provided by the Fallbrook Village Association for the benefit of the citizens of Fallbrook. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. Karen Utley, Jerry Patchett, and then, after Jerry, Jennifer Jeffries.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Karen Utley. I am also a Fallbrook resident. I'm speaking on behalf today of the nonprofit Fallbrook Arts Incorporated, which encompasses the Fallbrook School of the Arts and the Fallbrook Arts Center, and the nonprofit Fallbrook Arts and Public Places program. We have over 40 public art installations in Fallbrook. They need an ongoing maintenance. Things like bronze sculptures need to be cleaned regularly, and murals need to be restored. The funds are needed for new projects. All of these art installations benefit the entire community and attract visitors from far and wide. They reinforce Fallbrook's commitment to the arts also. The Community Benefit Program will help us preserve our public art and beautify our village. And we'd like to invite all of you to come to Fallbrook and see our lovely community. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Jerry Patchett.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jerry Patchett, and I'm a resident of Fallbrook. Fallbrook, as you probably know, is a unique, unincorporated community, but lacking the funds and services available to similar incorporated cities to help improve our village. These services have been provided by local volunteer groups in Fallbrook. Finding volunteers and fundraising have become more difficult, and there is concern over long-term sustainability of projects that contribute to Fallbrook's charm and character. I'm here on behalf of the nonprofit Fallbrook Beautification Alliance, which I helped found in 2004. Our projects include maintenance of the beautifully planted medians along and extend along South Mission Road, the downtown flower pots, our battery recycling program, which is in 3 markets, cigarette butt recycling. Did you know you can recycle cigarette butts into park furniture? Yeah, we put them in bags and we send them back east, and park furniture comes out. Also, maintenance of the military Welcome Home Memorial, graffiti cleanup, and our Keep Fallbrook Litter Free program, where volunteers pick up litter in their neighborhoods. Community-wide cleanups in conjunction with I Love a Clean San Diego, and we help maintain Jackie Heineman Park and the Pico Promenade. We are a 9-member board of directors struggling to raise funds to support these important community assets. The proposed community benefit program would ensure the future of these and many other worthwhile programs in Fallbrook. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And then Jennifer Jeffries.
Morning, everybody. I beamed down from Fallbrook as well. I want to thank the LAFCO staff for their detailed analysis and recommendation of approval for the Layton Towers activation proposal. Commissioners, your approval of this proposal will preserve and secure scores, and I mean scores, of beloved community resources. Over the past decades, thousands of volunteer hours and thousands of donor dollars have created signature features in our community. The 6 nonprofit groups identified in the proposal will be empowered to maintain, improve, and initiate precious homegrown volunteer efforts and donor-inspired elements of our community spirit. The care and feeding of these community treasures require a reliable and reasonable funding source, which this proposal will provide. It's a lifeline, almost a lifeboat for us. Your approval will allow us to move forward and present to our community and approve this wonderful way to fund our projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mr. Simmons, did you have some remarks you wanted to get to before we get to the commissioners?
I did, thank you, Chair. So kind of piggybacking on Priscilla Allen's presentation, Commission, this is a unique proposal in that today you're being asked to fundamentally expand the powers of an existing special district. As Priscilla has outlined, we are in favor of the request to expand powers to include parks and recreation, street lighting, and roads and streets, albeit with these 2 key conditions that Priscilla noted. And just to go a little further into the weeds on this, Priscilla mentioned that we have this condition, I think it's identified as number 5, where we are saying in the record, County of San Diego is going to remain the principal local agency with respect to anything that goes on involving streets, street lighting, or roads in streets, okay, in parks and recreation on a regional basis. We are also being very clear in the record that County Service Area 81 will remain the principal local agency with respect to local parks and maintenance, okay? The other key condition here is under law, anytime you are asked at LAFCO to expand the powers of a governmental agency, and in this case a special district, you have to be clear in the record that that agency, in your estimation, has sufficient revenues. This is why we are being explicit in recommending that you condition approval to require Fallbrook Public Utility District to increase their water rates to the level required to make up for the lost amount of property taxes that they would be redirecting to fund these beautification projects. our understanding, and General Manager Beebe can correct us on the record if need be, is that should you approve the proposal and it survived protests, and that's another item, then in December, when Fallbrook goes about their annual rate-setting process, they would need to essentially make up the equivalent of about $5 per existing connection in Fallbrook on an annual basis. So these powers would not go into effect unless and until that rate increase was approved by voters in the sense of a Proposition 218. And I'm going to just see if Jack would come to the microphone and confirm you are agreeable to this key condition.
So we're agreeable to the condition as it's written. I'll do one sort of nuance, is there's obviously two Fallbrook proposals in front of you. We're right now doing the financial planning for our next 5-year 218 process. It's really up to the commission, quite honestly, in terms of how you rule on both our proposals, if we will have to do a rate increase or not. So we will lay out the 218 process showing, you know, what rates will look like if we remain within the water authority, or the other option if we switch to Eastern and there isn't a sort of dictated, large dictated exit fee from this commission. Those are two different trajectories. So, you know, the trajectory of us switching to Eastern and doing this service, we could still lower rates. So under that situation. So the 218 process won't require us to raise rates, but if we stay with the water authority and we do this service, then we will have to make that up through rates. So that is sort of the nuance in this, is really, it is quite honestly up to the commission at how they rule on both these items, what that means for water rates for Fallbrook ratepayers.
Thank you, Jack.
Jack, I got a question for you. And Mr. Simmons had pointed out there was roughly a $5 annual per meter fee, or it's $5 per month?
$5 per month. So that's the equivalent, $500,000, yeah. So how that gets made up in rates will be part of the 218 process. So we have a per meter equivalent fee. So the board could elect to adjust that per meter equivalent fee if you know, if nothing else changes. So there is a cost there in terms of a monthly cost that will be incurred if nothing else changes.
So you're going to have to make up for these dollars that are coming from the property taxes right now. You're going to have to make up for those with the rate increases in the water bills. But if you don't have to make those rate increases, depending on how this commission deals with the other issue, but with the water authority, you may or may not have to raise those rates, but that's the mechanism in place to do that. Whether you have to raise them or not is going to be another question, I guess, later down the line.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, correct. Because we are reallocating existing revenue, property tax revenue we receive, that's largely used for infrastructure, so water capital improvement infrastructure. We can't decrease our costs by that much. We have that ongoing need. Yeah. So it'll have to be made up one way or the other. And the board has, you know, as Fallbrook has, you know, a number of challenging priorities, water cost being one, maintenance of the community being the other. The board elected that, hey, this is important enough, we understand there is going to be an ongoing cost for it, but it's important to the community.
And I guess to protect the ratepayers of FPUD, they're an elected body. So and they're the ones who are going to have to make this decision, so the ratepayers of Fallbrook into FPUD have the option of electing or not electing people that are going to make these types of decisions.
Correct, and theoretically in the future, because you know the structure of this isn't us building roads or taking on responsibility. Theoretically, in the future, the board could come and ask to deactivate it. So, you know, even though you know, we're asking for this today, it's not saying that in the future someone, if the public decided they no longer wanted to fund this service, there is a mechanism for them to do that in the future as well.
Okay.
I think, right? And there is a protest process also. So this isn't setting us to be able to go tomorrow and establish the service. It just moves us down the road, and I think Keen could explain that.
Okay, we have alternate Commissioner Drake has a question. Is that for Mr. Beebe?
Yes.
Okay,
I do too.
and you're on the hot seat here, Jack.
Jack, the state has rather tough requirements on the nexus between charging for water and paying for things that aren't water.
Correct.
Are you gonna trip that up by any chance?
Yeah, no, we're comfortable with that because this is using property tax revenue.
Okay.
So that's it, you know, the funds that are being allocated to this are existing property tax revenue that can be used for this function. That's how the executive officer here figured out a way for this to occur in the way it is occurring.
That Mr. Keene, this Mr. Simmons, he's kind of sneaky sometimes, but it's good in a good way. Mr. Willis, did you have a question?
Jack, I was just curious, was your board unanimous on this?
Yes, they were.
Okay, thank you.
And I see Susan Leaves.
Yes.
She has her hand up on the participants online.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Is this the time?
Is this yeah, okay, if you don't have anything for Mr. Beebe? No, this is the time for you to go ahead and make comments. Yes, Susan, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Susan Leavis. I'm a Fallbrook resident and chair of the Fallbrook Land Conservancy, and I'm commenting in support of the Latent Powers activation. Our organization owns several preserves in Fallbrook that are open to the public free of charge. Our open space preserves and trails provide recreational opportunities to residents that improve the quality of life in Fallbrook. We have a small staff and many dedicated volunteers, but it's difficult to keep up with the impact of preserve users, especially now that we've seen a drastic increase in visitors since COVID began. Latent Powers activation would allow our community to collect funds to support organizations like mine and other nonprofits that work hard to maintain and improve our small town. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And from with Erica, do you have any email comments while we're still in the public comment section?
So far, I've not received any email comments.
Yes, Mr. Willis.
I would like to go ahead and make a motion that we go with the staff recommendation, approval of the reorganization proposal without modifications of the terms as specified.
So there's two recommendations, there's alternative 1 and alternative 2. Which alternative are you?
Alternative 1.
Alternative 1, okay.
Chair, you have Commissioner McKenzie has a question.
Okay. So what do you have, Keene?
That was it.
Okay. Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, I just had a question regarding clarification. Does this, it was hard to tell on the map, but does this include the Morrill Hill CSD?
No. I'm seeing...
Or when the roads aren't designated?
Keene.
No.
That's a no. Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
I just want to say, when I saw this item, I thought, oh my gosh, it's the county supervisor's letting Fallbrook down here because you're coming for more money for roads and things like that. And I thought, oh my God, what's going on here? So I'm really happy to see, particularly with medians, which are the county's property, we should be taking care of them. But we have to kind of spread the money throughout the unincorporated areas like peanut butter sometimes, and it doesn't always get to where, we don't always have enough to go where it is always needed. But one of the nice things I always see about the unincorporated area, the people who live in Fallbrook and Borrego and Valley Center and parts of my district that are unincorporated, they all pull together and they get stuff done, and which is really nice. And they have volunteers that are just willing to do the things that the county and government just doesn't do, and particularly these beautification projects. This is wonderful. It helps keep the charm and character, I think, of the cities and the communities, and the fact that volunteers. Hopefully you all carpooled down from Fallbrook today, but this is really kind of the community spirit, and I really appreciate, I guess, our executive director's efforts working with the folks from the Fallbrook Village Association and making this, or bringing it to our board and commission. So. I'll second the motion. If I don't think I've heard a second yet for Mr. Willis's motion for approval of this item. Do we have any other commissioner comments or questions? I don't see any online. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanderlyn? Vanderlyn? Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cates?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Yes.
Commissioner Vanderman is absent, so alternate Commissioner Mathis. He's absent as well.
And Andy, you're on mute.
Andy, you there?
Hello, Andy.
We'll get a public member. Let's just stop here. Let's just wait a little bit.
There he is.
There he is.
There he
Andy, is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Yes.
How about thumbs up or thumbs down? I can't see it.
Can you read lips?
Yeah, I can't.
I
We
took
have
that as
8
a
in
affirmative
favor,
yes.
0 opposed, the motion passes.
Still muted.
Andy, you're muted. We'd love to hear from you. All right, thank you. We'll take that as a yes. Okay.
We'll take that as a yes.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fallbrook, for making the trek down here.
Thank you very much.
All right. I want to see any wilting flowers.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry. Sorry,
Cycle
what?
those cigarette butts.
Yeah, that cigarette butt thing, that was, my mind was started spinning. I says, oh, just be quiet here. Anyway. All right, moving on to our business calendar, item 7. We've got 7A, B, and C, 3 items here. First one, 7A, is an informative report. This is the private community water systems in San Diego County. This is an information item. Mr. Simmons, do you have anything for us?
We do, by way of Carol Neiman's going to give us a presentation. Carol.
Good morning, commissioners, and all those attending online. For the record, my name is Carol Neiman, and I'm an analyst with San Diego LAFCO. Today, I will be discussing agenda item 7A. So agenda item 7A is the informational report prepared by staff regarding the private community water systems operated in San Diego County, and done so as part of our adopted work plan. So this topic has been on LAFCO's radar for the last few years, and in conjunction with the recent round of municipal service reviews. And given statute's direction for LAFCOs to address private community water systems in these studies whenever possible. And a separate but related connection in statute requires mutual water companies to file their boundary maps with LAFCO and relay any key changes in their service activities as well. So therefore, this informational report is intended to pick upon these statutory props and serve as a supplement to recent and pending municipal service reviews, to document the extent of private community water systems and their key service information. Now, on that note, I would like to direct your attention, as I have a PowerPoint presentation to go over with you. If we can pull up the PowerPoint, please. Thank you. So to begin, community water systems are defined under statute as a water system that serves at least 15 connections used by year-long residents or regularly serves at least 25 year-long residents. Next slide, please. So the Commission is already aware of and has oversight of the 30 public community water systems that are operating in San Diego County. We have estimated the resident population at over 3 million. And in this report, we have identified a total of 39 private community water systems that are operating in San Diego County, and we have estimated their resident population at about 3.2 million. So staff has categorized these private community water systems into 4 types. The first, we have investor-owned. Second, closely held businesses. And third, mutual water companies. And lastly, other institutional. And next slide, please. So in terms of specifics, there are 2 investor-owned private community water systems that are operating in the city of Coronado and Live Oak Springs. We've estimated their resident population at 98,000. As for the closely held businesses, we have identified a total of 9, which mostly operate in East County and are generally consist of mobile home parks. We've estimated their resident population at 1,695. As for the mutual water companies, we have identified a total of 21, which also largely operate in East County and serve a somewhat isolated residential subdivisions. We've estimated the resident population at 7,617. Now, I would like to note that it's possible, if not probable, that the 9 closely held businesses we've identified may also qualify as mutual water companies, depending upon how their water services build or not build. Lastly, we have identified 7 water systems that are considered others and institutional, which are scattered throughout the county and are highlighted by the San Pasqual Academy. Now, as mentioned earlier, mutual water companies have an additional interest to LAFCO given their duty and statute to file their boundary maps with LAFCO and keep us informed of any changes in their service activities. Now, there's also an increasing number of special procedures being added in statute to help encourage and fast-track annexing of mutuals to cities and special districts. This is something that was done a few years back by this commission when annexing Rancho Corrido to the Unum Municipal Water District. Next slide. So to wrap up this discussion, I have a few comments regarding mutuals. As noted earlier, there is some question as to whether the 9 closely held businesses may qualify as mutual water companies, and to that, staff does plan to follow up with these entities for our shared interest. Now, with that said, 18 of the total the 21 total mutual water companies we've identified have done what is required of them in that they filed their boundary maps with LAFCO, whereas Laguna Mountain Mutual, Lake Henshaw Water Company, and Warner Springs Estates have not, so they are all out of compliance. Now, to conclude my presentation, staff believes an update and expansion on this informational report is warranted, if not this fiscal year, certainly the following, to help fill out the picture and drill down on the extent of mutual water companies in their locations relative to overdraft groundwater basins and their proximity to public community water systems. So I'd like to thank you for that time. This does conclude my presentation, and if you have any questions or comments, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Mr. Simmons, do you have any comments on this one?
I do. First of all, I want to thank Carol for doing a lot of legwork on this project. You can imagine, Commission, getting information on private community water systems and the various entities that oversee them, at least in terms of drinking water compliance, is a task, and Carol did an outstanding job of putting these all together. And just to drill down on this nexus, so as Carol mentioned, we are tasked in statute when we do these service reviews to do our best in identifying and evaluating private community water systems. We have deduced that doing that as part of service reviews is a bit time challenging, and so we like this approach, and hopefully the Commission will agree that going forward we address private community water systems in this informational report setting every 2 years or so. We can update our information. And again, keep these topics separate from the service reviews. Yes, they overlap, but I think isolating them in this format, as Carol has done, I think helps sunlight the topic and does so for the intent as billed, information only. So with that, again, my appreciation, Carol. This is information, but we'd be happy to take any questions or observations from the Commission.
Mr. Drake.
Carol, I agree. It's a tremendous amount of work to try to explore all of these different companies. I got 3 questions. One is, in the other institutional category, you have 3 million people being served? How the heck does that happen?
Within that category, Poseidon Resources is included, so they alone have a big service population as a wholesaler for water.
Gotcha.
So that's why you'll see that that's a high amount there.
And with some experience, our water district has occasionally provided fire support services for another small district. Is fire protection part of your exploration for the future?
To my knowledge, no. It's just strictly the community water systems.
Exactly. In other words, we're not depending on the community water systems for fire protection.
I'll jump in there. So that's a component that I think the answer is yes. I assume these subdivisions out mostly in East County have hydrants of some sort or tanks. So you caught us off guard. I hadn't even thought about that myself, Commissioner Drake. So maybe as this report evolves, that probably is a good topic to take up with the fire marshal to get some better information on how the connectivity works.
Understood. That's appreciated. I don't want to surprise you too badly. It's also been the case that in East County, a lot of these agencies have groundwater, and they also have septic systems, and occasionally they have been polluted. And I didn't know what our requirements were in our service agreements for protecting these agencies from their own sewage. Is that an issue?
That's certainly for thought, yeah.
Okay, and the last one is, many of these agencies are very small. They have 1 or 2 people. And so there's an issue in my mind about succession planning and coverage, where you have to have really 24-hour coverage to make sure water is safe for people. And that can be very difficult for a 1 or a 2-person shop. Is there mutual aid between these agencies or other agencies to try to cover when those things happen?
So that would be part of future steps. I think you're bringing up some good salient comments. And just for the observation, so many moons ago I worked for a much smaller county in Napa. And even though the number 7,000 or whatnot of a resident population for these mutuals doesn't seem like a lot for a big county like San Diego, it still needs their water service. It still needs the redundancy of having people on standby. So perhaps as part of not this upcoming work plan, but a future work plan, maybe we could dive further into those discussions.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry for jumping you in all this, but it just kind of struck me as I read this yesterday. Take care.
So what do we do if we're not going to do municipal service reviews on all of these entities? What are we going to do with them? What's kind of the role, or what are the next steps here of LAFCO with these agencies?
Well, Chair Desmond, I would suggest your role is a baseline, which Carol has brought to you today, is sunlight them for your benefit and for the general public's benefit. As we start to interconnect the dots, as Commissioner Drake started to do for us on our other interests, perhaps there are other roles we can play, and staff would be happy to start thinking about those roles, and perhaps as another informational item, just bring back some thoughts about what we could be doing if for no other purpose, establishing some connections for those agencies to perhaps start partnering functionally with each other. I don't know what relations these mutuals have with one another, but I'm guessing they would all benefit from some facilitator to bring them in a room and talk about shared challenges.
Well, that's a kind of a careful line I guess we have to go down, because sitting on the water board, water's for fighting, and it just seems that we want to make sure that I guess we don't overstep while we're still trying to protect. And then you said there was 3 entities, Laguna Mountain Water, Lake Henshaw, and Warner Springs, that have not filed their boundaries. Is there a reason or a contact, or just they don't want anything to do with LAFCO, or what have we heard from them, if anything?
Yeah, so I've actually contacted a lot of the agencies and haven't received a response. I do want to note that the Warner Springs Estates, it looks like on the Secretary of Business website that they're dissolved, so they may not be in existence.
Okay.
As for the other 2, not sure why that's the case. I can definitely try to follow up with them again and relay that once received.
All right, thank you. Well, I just recommend if we go ahead, we proceed with caution. Because water fights are they're not pretty. Is there any other comments on this item? This is an informational item, 7A. If not, I don't see any hands up.
Joe's hand is up.
Oh, Joe's hand. Commissioner McKenzie.
Thank you. I have a question on Lake Henshaw Water Company. It wasn't included in Appendix A. So, I don't know exactly where it is, and since this irrigation owns 45,000 acres up there, I don't know whether that happens to be the mobile home park or something that's outside of our boundaries. And what happened to, and I got a question, I'm sorry, but Appendix A in the staff report says that all 39 were going to be detailed in Appendix A, but there's only 21. And Lake Henshaw isn't there, so that's why I'm asking the question.
So with the Appendix A, we only included the first 3 categories. That was in part on my understanding of the assignment. And so the other institutional were not documented, as it was pretty hard to kind of categorize these in terms of how they fit within our report.
Well, can we give her,
So
give
do you have
her,
any information, they're out of compliance, so you know where they are, so there's Lake Henshaw, one.
So actually for the Lake Henshaw, they should be, let me review that one more time because that one is considered the mutual water company, so it should have been on there, and if not, that was an honest mistake and I can follow up with you.
Okay, thank you.
and then could you follow up with her, just tell her where they're located and what?
Yeah, I'll provide all that information on them, yeah.
Because that kind of piqued my interest too as well, because that's all VID water up there, I guess, at that property, so just curious what other Lake Henshaw entity might be.
Well, we just have the lake, we don't service we don't provide water up there.
Well, it's the lake and the land around it is yours though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, sorry, I'm just on Appendix A, I believe, under the Water Board's website, they're titled at Lake Henshaw Resort, Inc., so that might be what the error in this confusion is.
Well, Carol, you actually do have Lake Henshaw Resort listed on page 7 or page 121 of your packet. But to Chair Desmond's comment, what we will do after this report is do a double take, make sure we have all the information, and then when we post it online as a special study, we'll also send a link to the commission at that point too. So Commissioner McKenzie, thank you so much for making sure we get all of them listed in the appendix.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thanks for that report. I'm going to move on to item 7B. This is the legislative report. This is, I guess, request for support of Senate Bill 938 to amend the protest provisions.
Let us hear from Priscilla Allen.
All right.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Commission. So before the Commission is a report on legislative items of interest currently making their way through the state capitol, which either directly or indirectly impact LAFCOs. This check-in serves as an opportunity to ask for the Commission to go on record in supporting Senate Bill 938, which is authored by Senator Robert Hertzberg. And then next slide, please do. Thank you. So this bill would make life easier for LAFCOs by simplifying the process for LAFCO-initiated dissolutions of wayward special districts. And it would do so by amending and raising the protest threshold from 10 to 25%. So this would remove that existing impediment to all LAFCOs and would match the existing protest threshold for proposals initiated by either petitions or other agencies. And so aside from our recommendation to support SB 938, this is also an opportunity for the Commission to separately be made aware of Assembly Bill 2081. Next slide, please do. And this is also making its way through the state capitol and would extend the sunset date of Assembly Bill 1361. And this bill allows for water agencies to provide water services to tribal lands through a ministerial LAFCO process and through January 1st of 2022. Now this bill would extend that date by 3 years and to January 1st, 2025. And we are bringing this to your attention, Commission, as we do know that this is on the minds of a few municipal water districts in North County, given past and current discussions. This said, and unlike LAFCO, we're not suggesting the Commission take an opposed position, but rather we simply want to make the Commission aware. Further details on both bills are within the agenda report, as well as there's an attachment detailing all other bills that are being tracked by LAFCO. And so with our recommendation to approve a support position on Senate Bill 938 noted, I'll end my presentation here, but also gives an opportunity and defer over to Joe McKenzie should she want to add anything that I may have missed. Thank you very much.
Joe, you got anything? Commissioner McKenzie, do you have anything to add?
Yes, as soon as I unmute myself.
All right.
Yes, the Hertzberg Bill 938 It was heard in committee last week, this is Monday, and it passed out of committee 5-0, approved, and it is now going to the Senate floor, so that has been approved. And the one other portion of that particular bill is that it took all of the protest provisions that were scattered throughout CKH and put them into their own section. So all the protest provisions are in one section, and you're not skipping back and forth and flipping pages when you're reading through that document. And I'll support position, and that would go to the Senate floor, or directly to the Senate rather than to the committee. And we don't have a date as yet as to when it will be approved. And then also the Water Service Indian Lands, AB 2881. I believe the LAFCO at this point in time, because of nuances in there, did take an opposed position on that at their March 11th meeting. And then I might as well take this kind of opportunity, because usually I do it under commissioner comments, but there are 4 bills relevant to change to the Brown Act that will take various parts of the executive order and try to work them out. I think they will all go into one bill eventually, because each one has very similar, but there's always one sentence or one paragraph that's different, and probably the one that has the most controversy is that anyone who wants any agency that wants to have the Zoom type meetings, those have to be broadcast if they have a website. And some of those that are small districts just don't have that ability. And even the larger districts or medium-sized districts, sometimes the equipment is cost prohibitive relevant to their budget. So, like I said, there's bits and pieces of each one, and I think probably we have a meeting this end of this month, and I think the bills will be more clear as to where they're at that time. So there are a lot of watch bills still at this point in time.
So are you making a recommendation or a motion to approve that this commission approves SB 938?
I will make that motion, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion in multiple seconds. I think Mr. Willis has seconded. I heard him here. So appreciate Joe, all your homework and your insight and recommendations and looking into all these bills, and we really appreciate you're doing that and then sharing your insights with us. So I don't see any other hands, any other discussion. Can we have a roll call vote, please, Tammy?
Sure. Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara?
Yes.
Commissioner Kate?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Salas?
Yes?
So 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
All right, thank you, everyone. We got one more item, 7C. Hopefully you all got it in your packets last week. This is the authorization to establish a special revenue fund and related actions. I understand this is for going out and getting grant monies and outside of the general fund. So, Mr. Simmons, you got any input for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as you described, what we are asking of the Commission today is headlined by creating a special revenue fund for LAFCO for the explicit purpose of transacting monies for planning grants that we may be getting from the state. We know we have one already figuratively and perhaps literally in the bank, depending on your action today, a $250,000 grant from the state to do a agricultural trend review. In discussing this matter with both the county auditor, our own bookkeeper at Leaf and Cole, the wisdom had us come here today and ask not only that you authorize a special revenue fund so we don't utilize our general fund, and given this is really a pass-through transaction for us, but also authorize your staff to transact the existing $250,000 grant we received from the state into this fund, and that we set the budget for this year at $250,000. I'm going to do the same thing for next year at our next meeting, but nevertheless, this will allow us to pay vendors perhaps as early as this week, should you say yes. Be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions or a motion? We have Mr. Kate with a motion and second by Mr.
I'll move
Levy.
staff's recommendation. This is Commissioner McKenzie.
Okay, we already you got beat out by Commissioner Kate. He's quick. He is quick. But he's sitting right next to me, so I think it's a leg up. But anyway, any other questions or comments on this? This is great, Keen. Go out and get as many grant dollars as you possibly can. How about a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Salas? Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie? Commissioner McNamara?
Aye.
Commissioner Kate?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Salas?
She was there. There she is.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So 8 in favor, 0 opposed, the motion passes.
Multiple yeses from Mayor Salas.
The dogs wanted to vote too.
The dogs, they were. Yeah, somebody needs to take their dog out for a walk. So we have an executive director's report. Mr. Simmons.
Just a couple of items, Chair. One is I want to note that over the last few weeks, your staff has held meetings with both the Special Districts Advisory Committee and the Cities Advisory Committee, so we are keeping our relationships good with both parties. Happy to report that. Also, that the Fallbrook Rainbow Ad Hoc Committee is set to meet again next week, and I will come back to you at your next meeting with probably just a verbal update on discussions there. And then on a related note, and I did talk to Chair Desmond briefly about this commission. There is a probable chance that we will go ahead and cancel the May meeting. The only qualifier right now is we want to double check with a couple of applicants to see where they are in the processing of some item requests that we have. If they can't come forward and are not ready, then it would make sense to cancel the May meeting and then meet next in June. But through the chair, we will confirm next meeting status probably by the end of this week. So with that, that's the end of my report.
All right, thank you. Do we have any commissioner announcements or requests for future meetings? Other than the June one. I don't see any hands up. No commissioner announcements. All right, thank you everyone for being here today, online, in person. Appreciate all the help and effort that went into this. Meeting's adjourned.